My name is Marcus Taylor Mark, if you're not trying too hard. I'm 34 6'0" and I still wear steel-toe boots like they're dress shoes. My hands are calloused. My jeans are stained with paint, older than some of your TikTok favorites. And today, I walked into a building I own, dressed like the janitor I used to be. No one recognized me. And man, that was just fine by me. They looked right past me. The front desk kid, the guy vaping by the fire exit, the two startup bros arguing about who should be head of strategy vibes. Not one of them paused. Not one realized that the man in the blue work shirt with the name patch stitched on the chest was the reason the lights stayed on in that building. You could say that's where the fun started. A reality check says, if I go, you'll be cooled for skipping this part. So before you sit back and listen, take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the Final Revenge channel, but only if you really like what I have to say here. Now get in the mood to listen to this story, because it could be the ultimate sweet revenge. I used to clean this building, not metaphorically. I mean, I literally scrubbed the urinals and unstuck the elevator doors and changed the air filters no one thanked me for. I worked night shifts sometimes, day shifts too, back when I was the only one who gave a damn about whether the heat kicked in during January. This place, 1230. Brickmore is old, not in a charming rustic way. In a rusty pipe, nobody wants the ground floor kind of way. But I loved it. I learned every inch. I fixed things no one knew were broken yet. I saw the potential. And when the owner hit hard times, I made him an offer, quietly. It took 3 years, but I bought it. Under a holding LLC, through a friend's firm. Quiet on purpose. No plaques. No ribbon cutting. Just me and a fresh set of keys. And today I came back, not as the janitor, not even as the landlord. I came back as the ghost in the machine with a name badge, a clipboard, and full access to every single floor. The front lobby was louder than I remembered. New startup tenants had taken over most of the top 3 floors. Tech kids with buzzwords and oat milk, and a $1,000 espresso machine they don't know how to clean. One of them brushed past me with a laptop tucked under his arm like a baby he forgot to name. "Hey man, you're leaking paint," he said, nodding at the streak on my boot. "Gravity works," I replied deadpan. He didn't laugh, just kept walking like he'd scored some kind of point. Cute. I took the stairs habit and walked through the second floor hallway. Same scuff marks, same chipped corner tile. Someone had installed a neon collab zone sign above the old printer closet. It buzzed like a cheap motel light. A group of employees stood outside a meeting room, arguing about who forgot to refill the cold brew keg. I slid past them. One girl actually pointed at my badge and said, "Oh my God, is there a leak or something?" Because the bathroom upstairs smells like a sadness. I almost told her I was the leak. Instead, I said, "I'll check it out." She gave me a thumbs up like I'd just defused a bomb. I made it to the service stairwell, pulled out my old pass card. It still beeped green. Inside the maintenance closet, my old throne room, I found it untouched. My emergency wrench set still hung from the pegboard. My initials scratched into the shelf. One of my spare boots chewed slightly from the time a raccoon got in. Don't ask. And taped to the fuse box. A note I'd left for myself 5 years ago. You don't get to stop just because they don't see you yet. I smiled. Then I checked the circuit panel out of pure habit. Yep, still unbalanced. Some things never change. I made one small repair while I was there, because I'm incapable of walking past a loose wire without tightening it. Then I walked out, past the laughing startup kids, past the receptionist who called after me. "Hey, can you fix the AC too? It's being weird." I nodded, didn't say a word. But in my pocket, the real badge, the one that says I own 1230 Brickmore. And tomorrow, I was going to use it. I didn't sleep much that night. Not out of stress, more like anticipation, the kind you feel before a concert starts and the lights are still down. I lay in bed with one hand behind my head and the other still smelling faintly like oxidized brass from that fuse box I couldn't resist tweaking. It's wild how muscle memory doesn't care about job titles. The next morning, I put on the same uniform, navy work shirt, gray pants, boots with the dried paint streak, clipboard, no name tag this time, just a blank space. Today, I wasn't going in as the landlord. I was going in as the guy they didn't want to see until something broke. "Maintenance guy, you're in the way." That was the greeting I got, walking past the third floor's co-working space. A man in salmon chinos and Yeezys literally pointed to the corner and said, "Can you stand over there while we finish our meeting?" Their meeting was them eating overpriced salads around a laptop, while debating if their app should have smoother onboarding funnels. I said nothing. He snapped his fingers at me. I looked at his fingers, then looked back at him. He lowered his hand. Yep. Down the hall, someone had left the janitor's closet propped open with a yoga block. A woman in business casual leaned in and shouted, "Do you guys have another toilet brush? I think ours disintegrated." I walked past her too. Didn't break stride. The clipboard in my hand wasn't blank. It had every tenant's maintenance request printed out, some real most stupid. One request was literally, "The vibe in room 403 is off." Yes, that was the whole entry. When I got to the elevator, a younger guy in a branded hoodie turned and gave me this sideways glance. His lanyard said Eli, co-founder. I clocked him as the one who'd installed the espresso machine and bragged about not knowing how to use a plunger. "Dude, do you need access to this elevator?" he asked, gesturing like it was his private Uber. I smiled slightly. "Do you?" He blinked. Yeah. "We have a meeting upstairs." "Then hop in." He looked confused for a full beat, then stepped in with a hesitant nod like I'd just given him clearance to re-enter Earth's orbit. The elevator creaked. Same old squeak at floor 5. I built that squeak into my life like a theme song. Eli said, "Honestly, you guys do a great job keeping this place running." I looked him in the eye. "Yeah, I know." He got off on 6. I rode up to 7. Top floor. My floor. Back in the day, it had been just one big dusty storage unit. Pigeons loved it. Drafty, echoey. Now it was premium leased space, modern desks, soft lighting glass-walled conference rooms that looked like therapy setups for billionaires. I stepped inside. Nobody flinched. A woman in heels walked past with a smoothie and said, "Don't let them catch you tracking mud." Another guy gestured vaguely toward the kitchenette. The dishwasher's flashing something angry. I don't know. Probably needs a reset or a ritual sacrifice. I nodded again. Inside, I flipped the breaker switch on the dishwasher, then pulled out the manual. It had a note written in Sharpie on page 7. "This thing only listens to you." Mem. I'd written that years ago, when I was the one who had to convince this metal rectangle to behave with a careful sequence of button presses and sweet-talked resets. I fixed it. No one noticed. Back at the elevator, the doors opened, and 2 guys stepped in mid-conversation. "He's not actually the owner, right?" "No way someone in those boots has the capital." I didn't react, didn't turn, just let the doors close behind me. The rest of the day was a loop of minor tasks: adjusting thermostats, recentering a sensor light, removing a crumpled flyer that someone had stuck to a fire exit labeled "Crypto Happy Hour." Nobody asked my name. Nobody offered thanks. I was the background hum in their high-speed lives, but that's fine. Because tomorrow I wasn't coming in with a clipboard. I was walking into their morning meeting with the lease contract in my hand, and a very different name on my shirt. The conference room smelled like almond milk and low-stakes tension. That startup. That the one with the espresso machine and no concept of humility. Held their all-hands meeting every Wednesday at 9. Zero there, Mir, in conference room B. They called it Vibe Sync, which I'm pretty sure is code for talk loud until it feels like strategy. I arrived at 8. Not in my uniform this time. Just dark jeans, a clean button-up shirt, and the one nice jacket I owned that didn't scream, "I can fix your water heater." No clipboard. Just a manila folder with their lease agreement inside. I walked through the lobby and past the receptionist who'd once asked me if the mop guys get health insurance. She gave me a polite, confused smile like she knew she recognized me, but couldn't place the context. I didn't stop, didn't nod, just walked straight into conference room B. Inside, 10 people sat around a curved table. Standing at the front was Eli, our co-founder-in-chief of whatever. He had a slide deck up with the title "Scaling with Purpose." I stood at the door, quiet, until someone noticed. Can we help you?" a guy near the window asked. Eli turned. His face did that thing where the brain tries to find a box for you, but comes up empty. First, confusion, then amusement, then Recognition. Wait, aren't you the maintenance? I held up the folder. I'm Marcus Taylor, I said calmly. Property owner. I believe your company occupies floors 5 through 7. We're due for a quarterly lease review. Silence. Thick, delicious silence. Someone actually dropped their coffee lid. Eli blinked. Wait, you own this building? I nodded, then took one slow step forward. Since 2019, through Taylor Property Holdings, I used to be the guy who changed your air filters. Now I'm the guy who sends the invoices. Claire, the operations manager, I think, half raised her hand like she was in school. I'm sorry, but weren't you just... last week? Fixing your dishwasher. I said, yeah, I still do that sometimes. It's therapeutic. That earned a nervous chuckle from someone in the back. I opened the folder and laid it on the table. This is your current lease. You're coming up for renewal. We need to discuss your usage of common areas, violation of 2 building codes, and the unauthorized roof party you hosted last quarter. The last one made 3 people cough simultaneously. I clicked a pen. Let's begin. I didn't yell, didn't raise my voice, didn't gloat. I went line by line, clause by clause, mentioned the time the company's delivery drone dented a second-floor window, pulled up a time-stamped photo, referenced the noise complaint filed after they installed motivational bass drops in the conference rooms. Someone actually whispered, "Did he plan this?" I kept going. By the time I finished, Eli's face looked like someone had poured cold brew down the back of his hoodie. He adjusted his hat. So, you were like testing us? No, I said. I was maintaining the building I own and watching who treated people like furniture. His jaw tensed. Look, man, we didn't mean anything by it. You just looked like staff. Yeah, I said. And staff deserve respect too. They didn't apologize right then. They looked at each other, uncomfortable, quiet, and that silence. That was the beginning of change. Outside the room, I ran into Lena, the junior designer who hadn't laughed at me earlier in the week. She gave me a cautious smile. I knew something was different about you. I smiled back. Thanks for not laughing. She shrugged. Honestly, the guy who knew where the real thermostat was always had my respect. I handed her my card. Real one this time. Call me later, I said. I might have a better gig for you. I walked back to the stairwell. Same steps I used to climb every night with a plunger in one hand and a broken tile in the other. This time, my hands were free, and the only thing I was fixing was perspective. The day after the meeting, I showed up to the building at my usual early hour. Not in disguise, no uniform. Just me, clean clothes, coffee in hand, and a key card that opened every door. For the first time, people hesitated. The front desk guy who once told me the mop bucket couldn't park near the lobby couch actually stood up. Morning, mister. Taylor, he said. I nearly tripped on the compliment. Morning, Sean, I said like I hadn't spent 3 months picking gum off the underside of that couch while he live-streamed his fantasy league from behind the counter. He opened the security gate for me without asking. Cute. Upstairs, the energy had changed. It wasn't a full 180. More like a slow, uneasy pivot. The same people who laughed at me were now nodding a bit too enthusiastically. The Vibe Sync crowd gave polite smiles that screamed, "Please forget, I once called you the cleaning guy." I didn't forget, but I wasn't keeping score. I was just observing. At 11:15, Eli sent an email. Subject: follow up yesterday's conversation. He CC'd the whole office. A classic panic move. In it, he thanked me for the clarity and honesty and wrote some nonsense about redefining company culture around inclusion, humility, and internal integrity. He said they'd be revisiting team values. I almost laughed, because the guy who said, "Dude, do you need the elevator?" was now quoting Brene Brown. I forwarded the email to Ray, my lawyer and oldest friend from the boiler room days. He replied with a single word, LMO. Up. At noon, Lena knocked on my office door. Yeah, I said office. It's modest. On the 7th floor. Window view of the adjacent parking lot. Desk I built myself. Fridge with 2 root beers and a jar of pickles. Got a minute? She asked. Always. She stepped in with a notebook, sat carefully. So, that job you mentioned. I leaned back. You still doing design work? She nodded. Branding UX, some light front-end dev. Mostly for people who think Helvetica is a personality. You want to do something real? She blinked. Like what? I'm opening a small co-working annex on the ground floor. For solo creatives, freelancers, people who don't need buzzwords. They just need space. I want you to help design it. She stared, then smiled, then frowned. Wait, you're serious? Deadly. Why me? I shrugged. Because you're the only one who looked at me like I might matter even when I was holding a plunger. Her cheeks flushed. You start Monday. I'll pay you double what you're making upstairs. Lena grinned. Do I still get to use the espresso machine? As long as you clean it. That night, I took the long way home, walked past the building one more time, looked up at the windows I used to squeegee in the rain. One of them still had the streak I left on purpose. 2 diagonal lines, like a sloppy X. I called it my invisible tag. Proof I'd been there. Proof I didn't forget. And now, that building knew me too. Friday rolled in with the kind of morning haze that makes even ugly buildings look like they've got secrets. I was already at Brickmore by 6:45 a.m., sipping coffee from a chipped thermos and watching the maintenance crew unlock the front gate. They didn't notice me at first. Just went about their routine, lugging buckets, cracking jokes, dodging the same broken tile near the elevator that I still hadn't fixed on purpose. A little test, a little reminder. One of the younger guys, Benny, spotted me. His head tilted. Hey, wait, weren't you the guy patching the west stairwell last year? I nodded, still patching things. Just different kinds now. He looked confused, then shrugged. Respect. From a kid who's probably pulled more gunk out of drain traps this week than the CEO upstairs has pulled out of his email inbox all year. That word sat heavier than usual. Upstairs, the startup crew was trying way too hard to act normal. Their door was open. The music was softer. There was a fruit tray. I swear someone even wore a tie. I took the elevator this time. Made sure it stopped on every floor. Just a little reminder that I had access to every square inch of the place. When I got to 7, Claire from operations cornered me in the hallway, like she'd practiced the speech in front of a mirror. Hey, Marcus, we've been thinking about how we can be better tenants, more aligned with the values of this community. I raised an eyebrow. Which values? She blinked. Respect, stewardship, awareness of a shared ecosystem. Catchy. She smiled like someone who just found out the landlord has a recording studio and now wants to pitch a podcast. We'd love to invite you to our Monday wellness lunch, she added. Is there soup? She hesitated. Then I'll think about it. At lunch I met with Lena in the lobby. She had sketches. Good ones. Clean layouts for the ground floor co-working space. A vision that blended utility and warmth. Lots of natural light textured surfaces seating that didn't look like it came from a startup liquidation sale. Want to keep some of the industrial feel, she said, but soften the corners. People work better when the walls aren't yelling at them. I nodded. You ever manage a build team? She shook her head. You're about to... She blinked. Wait, what? You're lead designer. Hiring your own crew. You've got the vision. I've got the permits. Lena looked down at her drawings like they were lottery tickets. You serious? Deadly. Besides, I want someone in this building who actually knows what community means. She smiled. Deal. By 3 p. Eli appeared in my office doorway. No slides. No entourage. Just one guy in a hoodie trying to look casual. Got a minute? I nodded. He stepped in, holding a branded mug that probably cost more than it should. I just wanted to say. He paused. Look, man, I know we started off rough. I let the silence fill in the rest. He swallowed. I'm not great at whatever this is, but we're adjusting. We added a facilities appreciation budget. We put a spotlight on the crew during our Friday meeting. I raised an eyebrow. And I cleaned my own desk today. Wow, I said. Brave. He chuckled, nervously. Anyway, thanks for the wake-up call. I tilted my head. Ellie, yeah. If you ever call someone the chief mop officer again, I'll raise your rent 18%. His smile froze. I didn't blink. He nodded. Got it. After he left, I opened the window a crack. Felt the city air drifting warm and honest. Below me, a delivery guy struggled with a box on a dolly, and one of the janitors stepped in to help without a word. No one cheered. No one took a picture. They just made the building better in the quiet way that matters. And me, I just watched, knowing I'd finally built something worth keeping clean. The Monday lunch invite came through again. Subject: community connection and wellness join us. I almost ignored it, but curiosity won. That and the promise of soup. I walked in right at noon. Big open floor, neatly arranged folding tables, and a suspiciously curated playlist of acoustic covers of 90s hip-hop. I swear I heard someone sing Gin and Juice over a ukulele. Eli was there smiling like a politician who just learned your dog's name. Claire waved from the smoothie station. The Vibe Sync crew had made name tags. Mine said, Marcus, Facilities Visionary. I stuck it on upside down. They were trying. I'll give them that. There was quinoa salad, kombucha in a glass jar labeled local bacteria. Someone brought vegan brownies that tasted like regret and oats. After a few awkward icebreakers, during which I lied and said my fun fact was I can parallel park a boat, they sat me down at the head table. And Eli stood up. He tapped his glass with a biodegradable spoon. I just want to acknowledge that sometimes we all need reminders that the people who keep things running might be invisible until they're not. And that's on us. He looked right at me. And that guy over there who literally owns the building and also fixed our espresso drain with a shoelace and a paperclip. Yeah, that's Marcus. He's not just our landlord. He's a legend. People clapped. One woman wiped her eye, which I'm 90% sure was either emotion or cayenne from the chili. Yeah. Afterward, I stayed behind to help stack chairs. Out of habit, Eli came up beside me. Hey man, he said, real question. You ever think about talking about your story? Like, publicly? I raised an eyebrow. People love transformation stuff, he added. Rags to real estate. Janitor to mogul. Not my vibe. But think about the inspiration value TikTok's real speaking gigs. I looked at him. Elegant. Yeah. Do I look like a man who wants to go viral? He blinked. No. Correct. He laughed. Fair. But if you change your mind. I patted his shoulder. I won't. That evening, I walked the building alone, something I hadn't done in months. From the boiler room to the roof, the stairwell still smelled like old floor wax and ambition. I paused by the janitor's closet, my old one, and found a sticky note on the wall. It wasn't mine. It said, if you're reading this, you probably know how to fix the elevator. You're a legend. B. Benny. I smiled, not because I wanted recognition, but because someone noticed what mattered. I ended the night in the new ground floor annex, the space Lena was designing. The walls were half painted. The furniture hadn't arrived, but the lights worked, and the blueprint was taped to the window, like a promise. She'd scrawled across the bottom, make it soft where it used to be hard. Damn right. I sat on the floor, let the silence stretch, then pulled out my phone and recorded a voice memo. Just for me, day one, not of ownership, but of making it mean something. And I added, next time they see me in uniform, they'll still laugh. But it won't be for the same reason. Tuesday started with an email from my accountant and ended with a box of mismatched light bulbs from a tenant who thought I still did hardware returns. In between, just the usual chaos that comes from running a building with 12 businesses, 4 temperamental elevators, and 1 espresso machine that has developed what I can only describe as a mood at night. Zero sabernia. The third floor HVAC sensor glitched and started blasting heat like we were prepping for a bread bake. At 9, someone emailed to say the bathroom hand dryer was screaming. At 9, I walked in on a wellness consultant giving a lecture on energetic blockages in plumbing. That was the moment I decided I needed a break. I went to the rooftop. It's not on any official floor plan, not as a usable space, but I keep it clean. Quiet. It's where I used to eat my lunch back when my office was a mop sink and a folding chair. I brought up a folding stool and a bottle of root beer. Watched the traffic. Listened to the hum of the city like it was a song only a few people knew the words to. And then, as if summoned by peaceful thoughts, my phone buzzed. Lena. I picked up. Hey, she said. Can I show you something? Does it involve drywall dust? It involves victory. Better. I met her in the new annex space. She'd spent the morning building mock-ups for the signage soft fonts. Warm color palettes, textured materials you'd want to touch even if you weren't a designer. In the center of the table, was a sketch of the front welcome sign. It said, "The Fix," underneath, for people who make things, fix things, and build from nothing. I didn't say anything right away. She looked nervous. "You hate it," she said. I shook my head. "I think it's perfect." She let out a breath like she'd been holding it since Tuesday last week. "I also met with a furniture guy," she said. "He can do modular, but everything's soft-edged, cushioned. Zero ego. You told him that." I told him exactly that. "Good." We walked the space together, measured a few things, argued about rug textures, laughed too loudly when we found a loose tile shaped like Florida. Then out of nowhere, she stopped. "Can I ask you something?" I nodded. "Why didn't you tell anyone sooner that you owned the place?" I leaned against a beam. "Because when people know you've got power, they treat you different. Not better, just different. And I wanted to see how they treated someone they thought didn't matter." She nodded. "And now that they know," I smiled, "I treat them different." We stayed there another hour, just sorting things, planning. Before we left, she wrote a new sticky note and slapped it on the door. "This place will be kind, or it'll be empty." I left it there. On my way out, I passed Benny in the stairwell. He was wiping the railing with his sleeve, even though that's not technically in his job description. He gave me a grin. "The dryer's fixed." I kicked it twice. Classic fix. I learned from the best. And just like that, the place was starting to hum with something new. Not just wires and lights, but respect. Not loud, but clear. Friday mornings at Brickmore usually smell like burnt coffee and stress deodorant. But this one, it had an edge. Something in the air, like everyone suddenly remembered the landlord wasn't just a spreadsheet. He was a guy in boots who might be listening, which, to be fair, I often am. I started the day with a checklist. Roof vent inspection, fire extinguisher swap on 5. And reviewing a proposal from a guy who thinks co-working spaces need inspirational fog machines. Spoiler, they do not. Around 10, I made my way to the 3rd floor. A law firm there had recently installed a client refresh lounge, which is code for a fancy couch and a mini fridge with $10 sparkling water. Their managing partner, a guy named Trent, who always talks like he's narrating a golf tournament, stopped me in the hallway. "Marcus," he said, "do you have a moment?" "Sure." He smiled like he was holding in a punchline. "We've been watching the way you've engaged with the other tenants." He said, watching like it was something he does from behind binoculars and a hedge. "Some of us were talking." He continued, "And we were wondering if you'd consider running a tenant leadership roundtable." I blinked. "Oh, what now?" "You know, share your insights, community cohesion, facility strategies, that sort of thing." I stared. "Trent, you want me to host a therapy group for people who forgot my name when I was cleaning their toilets?" He looked genuinely startled. No, not well, yes, but in a good way." I held up a hand. "Tell you what, I'll consider it. As long as I get to pick the snacks." He grinned. "You've got yourself a deal." Up. I didn't say yes. But I did start drafting a flyer that said, "Tenant Cohesion Hour. Come sit with the guy who pays the bills." That afternoon, Lena caught me staring at the new window decals she designed for the annex. They were subtle etched into the glass, not plastered on top. One showed a simple outline of a wrench. Another, "A pair of boots?" She shrugged. "Thought it felt right." I nodded. "Feels perfect." Oh. Around 4, I went to the basement, where it all started. The old maintenance locker was still there, door creaky as ever. Inside was the ghost of my past life. Worn tools, half-used supplies, and one cracked mug that said, "Plunge into success." I'd left it there on purpose. I picked it up, turned it in my hand, then carefully placed it on a new shelf I'd built into my office upstairs. A quiet trophy. That night, I got an email from a tenant on floor 6. Subject line, about the music in the hallway. She'd once told me the cleaning crew should wear softer shoes. Now, she was asking if I'd be willing to consult on a soundproofing layout for their new client space. Said she valued my hands-on insights. I replied, "Sure. Bring snacks." I ended the day walking the hallways, not because something was broken, just because I could. And I stopped near the stairwell where a new sticky note had appeared. This one wasn't signed. It said, "We see you now." You ever notice how respect doesn't show up in applause? It shows up in the pause before someone speaks to you. The extra second where they choose how to talk. The absence of the little smirks they used to get away with. That's what changed first. Not the words. The pauses. Boom. Monday morning, I wore my uniform again. Not because anything needed fixing. Because I felt like it. The navy shirt. The paint-flecked boots. Even the name patch. Mark stitched slightly crooked from a machine I bought on eBay back when I still did my own sewing repairs. I walked into the lobby like it was any other day in 2018. Except this time, the front desk guy stood up and said, "Mr. Taylor, can I get you anything?" I almost asked for popcorn. Upstairs, Eli nearly tripped over himself when he saw me. "Dude, are we having a facilities emergency?" "Nope," I said. "Do you want us to clear out the hallway?" "Nope." "Are you doing a uniform day?" "Maybe." He blinked. "Oh." I let the silence do the rest. Then I winked and walked toward the elevator. He stepped aside like I was carrying a flamethrower. I rode up to 7, where Lena was finalizing her team picks. She had 3 people in the conference room, a carpenter, a lighting designer, and a soft-spoken woman named Dee, who specialized in acoustic comfort. Whatever that meant, it sounded expensive. I stood in the doorway. They looked up slightly startled by the janitor look. "Hey, boss," Lena said, smirking. "Nice threads." "Thanks." Decided to remind the building who taught it manners. Dee looked at me. "You're that Marcus. The one in the podcast?" "Yeah," I laughed. "There's a podcast." Lena grinned. "Not yet." "Oh." We reviewed the plans. I approved everything. Gave Lena full authority to run the annex project. Told her the only rule was simple. No ego, no buzzwords. If someone brings a slide deck called creative culture, you must fire them. She laughed. I didn't. Later, I took the back stairs. Ran into Benny again this time, balancing a mop and a Bluetooth speaker blasting reggaeton. He saw me. Eyes flicked to the uniform. "Respect," he said again. "You back on the squad?" "Something like that." He smiled wide. "I kept your plunger in the old locker, just in case." Legend. I ended the day with my boots on the desk, sipping lukewarm tea from the cracked mug I'd rescued from the basement. The building buzzed below me, conversations machines, meetings, music. It wasn't perfect, but it was humming in a new key, one I liked. That night I got a voice memo from Leanie. Just 3 words. "We got this." I played it twice. Saved it under? Final fix, confirmed. And finally, I turned off the lights, locked the office, and walked out, wearing the same uniform they used to laugh at. But this time, they held the door open. It was raining the next morning, the kind of steady drizzle that makes everything feel like a scene in a movie, where someone's about to realize something important. I showed up early as usual, still in uniform, still no clipboard. The guy from the law firm, Trent, was in the lobby, umbrella dripping. He spotted me and offered a nod like we were part of the same secret club now. "Morning, Marcus." "Morning." He shifted awkwardly. "I liked your comment at the tenant lunch about respect being quieter than applause." I hadn't said that, but sure, I nodded. "It stuck with me," he added. "Had me thinking about my own staff." I raised an eyebrow. "You mean the ones you once told to leave the mop guy be?" He smiled sheepishly. "Yep. Those," I patted his shoulder. "Growth. We love to see it." Upstairs, the vibe was different again. Not performative, real. People made eye contact, said good morning, even offered real questions like, "How are you?" in a tone that didn't sound like an HR script. On 6, someone left donuts out for the building staff. I took the chocolate one. That's the rule. Whoever owns the building gets first pick. At the kitchenette, I caught 2 startup guys arguing over who last used the microwave. I leaned in. "You do know it's voice-controlled now, right?" They stared. It responds to sarcasm. They tried it. I walked away before they realized I was messing with them. Let them figure it out the hard way. At noon, I got a text from Lena. New paint arrived. Want to test swatches? I met her downstairs in the annex. The space was finally taking shape. Warm wood, soft light. No ego. You could already feel how different it would be from the buzz upstairs. We held up paint chips. She pointed to one called Gentle Concrete. I pointed to one called Hushed Steel. Sound like rejected indie bands, I said. She laughed. That's why I like them. We chose both, then sat cross-legged on the floor, eating burritos from the taco truck across the street. "This feels good," she said. "It is good." She looked at me. "You ever think about opening another one?" I paused, not because I hadn't thought about it, but because I wasn't sure I wanted to yet. "Maybe," I said, "but only if the second one comes with someone like you." She smiled. "You'll need better lighting next time. Or worse lighting," I said. "Keep the vibe humble." That evening, I took the elevator down, past a new tenant moving in a small design firm. One of them looked at my uniform, then did a double take. "Wait, are you maintenance?" I smiled. "Something like that." They laughed politely, then offered to hold the door. We both stepped inside, and the ride was silent, but not awkward. Just quiet. The good kind. The kind that tells you this time they're listening. Wednesday brought drywall dust, a surprise inspection, and one of those emails that starts with quick heads up, but ends in minor chaos. The inspection was from the fire marshal, unannounced. Of course, she showed up with a clipboard, 2 assistants, and the kind of smile that says, "I will shut this place down and still make it to lunch by 12:30. I wasn't worried. The building was old but not sloppy. Everything up to code. I made sure of that. In fact, I'd made sure of it back when I was the one crawling through vents and fixing faulty wiring with $5 and a prayer. Still watching her go room to room like a structural bloodhound made me nervous. Until she hit floor 6, where a startup had recently installed LED light strips under their desks that were somehow both not waterproof and powered by daisy-chained extension cords. I raised an eyebrow. "New?" I asked. The co-founder stuttered. They came with the desks." The fire marshal scribbled something, and then looked at me. "You're Taylor, right?" "The owner." I nodded. "You've kept this place clean, organized. Old bones but strong." I smiled. "Thanks." I knew it had potential. She looked back at the co-founder. "Get rid of the lights and the cords. And whoever thought this was a good idea." I coughed into my fist. Respectfully. She almost smiled. After they left, I walked through the annex again. Lena had set up the first test desk. Mid-century shape, soft edges, outlets built into the sides. Dee had wired ambient sound masking through the ceiling, soft static and hushed tones that made the place feel like a library in space. I sat for a moment, let the room settle. "This is going to work," I said. Lena nodded. "I know." That afternoon, a tenant from the first floor, an accountant named Nadine, dropped off a plant. Said it was for the landlord who didn't forget where he started. I didn't know what kind it was. Still don't, but it looked determined. I named it maintenance. At 5:22 p.m., I saw Benny in the loading dock. He was helping a delivery guy lift a copier. No one asked him to. He just did it. I walked over. "You off shift?" "Yeah," he said, but figured I'd give him a hand. That box was louder than the boss's playlist. I nodded. "You good here?" He grinned. "Legendary." Back upstairs, I poured the last of my tea into the cracked mug. Sat by the window, watched the sun slide behind the building across the street. And in that exact moment, I realized something. I didn't need to prove I owned anything anymore. Not the building, not the respect, not even the silence. Because the building already knew me, and that was enough. Thursday morning came with a surprise. Someone had left a gift bag outside my office door. It wasn't fancy, just a brown paper bag with a piece of duct tape sealing the top. Classy. Inside, a thermos. Brand new. On the side, in cheap vinyl letters, the legend. No card. But I had a pretty good guess. I sipped from it all morning, even though the tea inside was weak and had that weird metallic aftertaste. Because sometimes appreciation tastes like aluminum and sincerity. Downstairs, the annex was coming together. The floor was finished, the lights were warm, and someone had finally removed the last trace of the old HVAC stain from the ceiling. Lena ran a fingertip along one of the new shelves, like she was testing it for narrative potential. "Tomorrow we hang the sign," she said. "You ready?" She looked at me. "Are you ready?" I nodded, then added, "But if you cry, I get to cry too." She smirked. "Deal." Later that day, the 6th floor startup crowd flagged me down. Apparently, they wanted to rename their break room, something honoring the journey. I walked in to find a whiteboard filled with options. Founders Fuel Zone, the Resilience Room, Recharge and Respect, I stared at it, took the marker, wrote, room. They stared, then nodded slowly, as if I'd just dropped some Zen truth. Sometimes the best lesson is reminding people not everything needs branding. That evening, I walked the halls again. Lights dimmed, cleaning crew humming softly over tile. I watched Benny wipe down a handrail without realizing I was there. Pure focus, no performance. I nodded. He didn't look up, didn't need to. That's how I knew it stuck. Before I left, I stopped by the janitor's closet, still the same creaky hinge. Inside, I found something new taped to the wall under my old wrench hook. He built it, then he cleaned it. Then he gave us keys. No name, just truth. I let the door close slowly behind me, the sound echoing like the softest kind of applause. Tomorrow we'd open the fix. Tomorrow we'd hang the sign. But tonight was just for me. A final quiet lap around the place. I turned from afterthought to legacy. Same floor, same walls, different weight. Friday, the fix opened at 9:00 B. But I was there at 6:12, already wiping down counters that didn't need wiping and making sure the tea bags were arranged by color and mood. I don't know who I thought would notice, but I noticed. That was enough. Lena arrived at 7. Orger Zero sharp paint on her jeans hair still wet. She carried the sign herself, laser-etched wood matte, finished the letters sunk in deep like they belonged there. The fix, underneath in smaller text. Where we make things better. We hung it together using 2 drywall screws and 3 quiet minutes. When it clicked into place, neither of us spoke. We just stood there side by side watching it settle. The first to arrive was DR Acoustics Wizard. She brought a plant and a Bluetooth speaker already softly looping ambient cafe sounds. Then came Benny. I know I'm not official staff, he said. But I brought donuts. Figured you'd want first pick. I took the chocolate one. Some rules don't change. By 9:30. The first members were drifting in. A podcast host. A woman designing her own board game. A guy with a beat-up laptop and a sticker that said, "Fix yourself first." They didn't gawk, didn't ask if I was help. They just nodded, like I was part of the architecture. Upstairs, the tech floor sent down a welcome basket that included a handwritten note. Thanks for letting us rent where the real builders work. I'd be lying if I said that didn't hit. Around noon, I stepped outside, just for a minute, watched the sidewalk traffic, took a breath, thought about the first time I walked into this building. No keys, no title. Just a plunger and a toolbox, and the quiet belief that maybe someday it could be mine. Now, I had both keys and a title, and a hallway full of people who knew how to fix more than just printers. Lena came out behind me. We stood there facing the glass. Through it, you could see the sign, the soft lights, the way people moved like they belonged. Looks good, she said. It is good. She nudged my shoulder. You still worried they'll laugh when you wear the uniform? I shook my head. No, she raised an eyebrow. Because if they do, I added, they're laughing in a building I own. We stood there a little longer, watching a place that used to ignore us hum with quiet respect. And then I pulled out my phone, opened the Notes app, typed just 5 words. Don't fix it. Build better. Then saved it, and walked back inside. By the following week, the fix had rhythm, the kind you don't manufacture. It just happens. People arrived on time, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. Chairs were always in the right spot. Lights adjusted themselves throughout the day, like the sun had manners. Someone even made a tea inventory chart that tracked which blends got used most often. Spoiler, Zen Whisper was an underdog champion. It didn't feel like a co-working space. It felt like a place that remembered your name without needing to ask twice. And I was proud. Not loudly, not in a LinkedIn brag kind of way, just quietly. Like when you fix a squeaky hinge, no one asked you to. And days later someone says, "Hey, that door's smoother now," and you just nod like it fixed itself. On Wednesday, I got a call from a woman named Tasha, an old co-worker from my janitor days. She'd seen a LinkedIn post someone else made about the space. Said she recognized the uniform, asked if I was actually the owner or just famous for pretending to be. I laughed. It's complicated. She asked if we were hiring. I said we always were for the right people. She started Monday. That afternoon, I stopped by floor 5, one of the older tenants, a publishing group. Their lead editor had requested a walkthrough for a very minor door issue. Turned out someone had leaned a bookshelf against a sliding track and then blamed the door for not moving. I fixed it in under 2 minutes. The editor, a tall guy in his 60s with sleeves rolled and glasses on a string, looked at me and said, "You know, it's rare. A landlord who still shows up with tools, old habits." He smiled. "Keep them. The world's full of people who only show up with opinions." On my way out, I stopped by the janitor's closet again. New sign on the door. Staff only, except Mark. He gets a key to everything. Underneath was a drawing crude cartoonish. A man with a wrench in one hand, a crown in the other. I didn't know who made it. Didn't need to. I left it there. That night, I cleaned the annex one last time, just me, a rag, and a playlist called Fix Things Quietly. When I turned off the lights, the space glowed like a low fire. Not because it was perfect, but because it had finally been earned. Friday came quietly. No ribbon cutting, no press release, just the usual elevator chime and the smell of cheap hallway air freshener. But something in the air felt final, like the building itself was exhaling. By 8, no, emip, the fix was humming. Lena stood by the front window, sipping from a mug that said, "Kind work is real work." She looked calm, but her fingers were twitching the way they always do when she's thinking too fast for her body to catch up. I stepped beside her. She didn't say anything, just handed me a sticky note that read, "We made it soft," and underneath in smaller letters, "Thank you for letting it be." I kept it, folded it once, slid it into my back pocket like a treasure. At noon, I did something I hadn't done since I signed the deed. I sat in the lobby, not my office, not the stairwell, the actual front lobby on one of those stiff gray benches nobody likes. Just sat, watched. People came and went. Tenants, delivery drivers, a kid selling software, a woman dragging a giant print sample through the doors, like it was a surfboard of ambition. No one stared. No one pointed. But a few nodded, just slightly, like the building had finally whispered the truth to them. And they heard it. Claire from upstairs stopped on her way out. She wore actual sneakers for once, like she'd accepted that being approachable didn't require stilettos. "Hey, Marcus," she said. "We're doing a panel next week. Topic is ownership with empathy. Want to join?" I smiled. "Send me the link. I'll think about it." She tilted her head. "You're really not into the spotlight, huh? I've had enough light for a lifetime." She nodded, laughed softly, and walked out the door. I waited until the building was mostly quiet, then walked through one last time. Elevator to stairwell, stairwell to boiler room to the rooftop, just to feel it. Every crack, every pipe, every space I used to clean by hand. Up on the roof, I stood where I once ate cold sandwiches and imagined what it would feel like to be in charge. It wasn't loud. It wasn't glorious. It wasn't some speech or flex or final confrontation. It was just this, a man in worn boots, alone, at peace, owning the thing he fixed with both hands and silence. Oh, I left the roof slowly, took the back stairs down. On floor 4, someone had taped a fresh sticky note outside the supply closet. It said, "Legend lives here." I didn't touch it, just smiled, and walked out. So, that's it. That's the whole thing. No viral moment. No slow-motion montage with people clapping and handing me keys I already owned. Just the truth. Slow and steady unfolding like a hallway light that flickers for years before it finally stays on. I didn't want revenge, really. Not the sharp kind. Not the loud kind. What I wanted was to matter. To build something that couldn't be erased, laughed at, or dismissed just because I walked in wearing the wrong shoes. And now they see me. Not because I forced them to, but because I stood still long enough to become part of the structure. And here's what I'll tell you, in case no one's ever said it before. The uniform doesn't make you invisible. The silence doesn't mean you're not worth hearing. And the person scrubbing the corners, no one notices, might just own the whole damn building. So wear the boots, fix the hinges, show up quiet and steady until the walls remember your name. Then when it's your turn, make room. Leave the closet unlocked. Let someone else walk in and find the note that says, "You belong here." And maybe, just maybe, they'll tape their own note next to yours someday, right beside the plunger, right beneath the crown. And that'll be the ultimate sweet revenge.